All right, moving on. Our next segment, yeah, this is just to kind of give folks some insight into what life is like. Uh, I remember having a conversation. It was a bit of a debate. I forgot with who because people try to debate me all the time. And I'm not really like, I just don't really care that much to debate with people. But every so often you get roped into it, you're trapped, held hostage, whatever. And people just think that they're going to get their bars off. And, people love to say, well, like, give me some examples of racism. Like, how has racism affected you? Um, and, I could talk about racism and the ways that it's affected me and whatever, but then they want more and more and more and more because they're looking for something that would justify their idea of where the country is. Indeed, that the country is past. It's a post-racial society, is what I'm trying to say. So I end up in these conversations, and we go back and forth. Ultimately, it ends up being the case that I have to let people know that there are invisible forms of racism. It's just inevitable. You have to get to that point because if I point to data that says these are the outcomes, then people have a tendency, people who don't see the world the way that I do, they have a tendency to say, well, the data looks like that because of a moral failing of the people, as opposed to a systemic failure of the government, right? And, it's very easy to kind of walk people out of that circle that they get themselves in. Well, okay, so black people have this moral failing. How about black people that live in this country or that country or whatever, right? And then that you see them kind of move the goalpost or skip around or whatever, right? But the point is that I always end up having that conversation about the invisible forces, and they love that. Oh my, here we go. You lives with your invisible forces. You can't substantiate anything. Okay. So what we're going to do is substantiate the invisible forces right here, right now. Okay. So this is recent. This is in the past couple of weeks when this was published. Probably the past week. Black woman exposed bias in hiring on LinkedIn. Okay. This is from Black Enterprise. A black woman who posed as a white woman on LinkedIn to land job interviews is revisiting her corporate catfishing experiment in a new docuseries. After months of unsuccessful job hunting, Aaliyah Jones went undercover as a white woman on LinkedIn to see if her results would change. Her 8-month experiment, captured in the docuseries Corporate Catfish, Being Black in Corporate America, revealed clear racial bias in hiring practices. Quote, I made that fake white LinkedIn profile out of frustration, but also out of grief, unquote, Jones wrote on Kickstarter. Goes on to say, because no matter how qualified I was, how articulate, how buttoned up, being black still meant being overlooked, unquote. The DC-based digital storyteller chronicled her 8-month LinkedIn experiment, shocking the community by revealing that her white woman catfish profile received more recruiter inquiries than her real account. Quote, I was tired of not getting hired and being overlooked, unquote, Jones explained to Refinery 29's Unbothered. She goes on to say, I studied for interviews religiously, showed up on time, got stood up, traveled across cities, made it to the first round and still got nothing. After a while, it stopped feeling like a coincidence and started feeling like a pattern. That's when I decided to run an experiment, unquote. After sharing her story, it quickly went viral, drawing messages from countless others with similar experiences. Jones set up submission forms for people to share their own stories, and within a week, over 300 had signed up. Despite pressure to repeat the experiment, she chose to honor her boundaries, keeping it a one-time lived experiment. However, the response inspired her to transform the project into a documentary for which she is now seeking funding on Kickstarter. Corporate Catfish did exactly what it was meant to do, spark conversation, open eyes, and create community, Jones said. So I want to say this too. This is not the only time that this has happened. People just kind of done the catfish thing. We've famously had a guest on the show. We might have had him on twice. Theo E.J. Wilson. He's an actor, but he's also known for, he's did a TED Talk for people that the name might ring a bell. And he explained how he went undercover as a right-wing political commentator. He went undercover as a white man. He went undercover as a black man, if I remember correctly. and just kind of played with this catfishing thing. And he found there were more opportunities for him as a black man who was pretending to be a conservative. And he found that there was an entirely different algorithm for white conservatives than there were for, you know, anyone who's not that. And their algorithm is deeply troubling and just very dark. But there are also studies, many studies, where simply the name on a resume would be swapped out. It'd be a black sounding name swapped out for a white sounding name, and the increase in interest in this candidate. You know, everything else in the resume being the same, just the name. And this is one of those invisible forces that, you know, we try to invoke during these conversations with these people that feel like we're in a post-racial society, that black people are just playing the victim, that, you know, whatever. Now, this is just one facet of society. This is simply just hiring. This isn't promotion. This isn't environmental justice. This isn't education. This isn't political disenfranchisement. This isn't, you know, healthcare. This isn't, you know, economic, what is it? When we talk about houses, when people's houses aren't the same price because they're black. I forget what it's called, but there's a term for that. In any event, there are these invisible systems that ultimately shape outcomes for black and brown people. The most noticeable way is through money, income, net worth, because that feeds into the community, feeds into schools, et cetera. But not enough can be said about mental health. Not enough can be said about, you know, the prospects for your offspring, your future, and what other prospects exist beyond this constrained reality that many people find themselves subjected to. And so I thought this was meaningful to share. I know, Q, you have some thoughts here, so I'll make sure that you can share yours as well.
Yeah, I don't know the exact term for what you were trying to describe, but
Me either, I forgot it.
Cases where, you know, black homes are being appraised and undervalued significantly less because the homeowner is black.
Right.
Same home, change the pictures in the house, put a white family in there. The house is instantly worth more. I don't know the term for that, but we have covered instances of that before. This is not shocking in any way. It's disturbing, it's discouraging, but it's not shocking or surprising because we've been through it. And we've been through it. We've witnessed it. We've experienced it. You know, you and I jokingly went through a period that I called the Twilight Zone when I kept making it to the final steps of these interviews and was passed over. You know, passed over by people who I knew in some cases were less qualified than me because I worked with them before at other companies, same industry, same resume, where I was a higher ranked person with a higher performance record. And the person doing the interview was somebody who either used to report to me or did the same job at a lesser level than me. And I had to keep asking these questions. Why do I continue to get passed over? And in some of these cases, it's as obvious as it sounds. We try very hard to not land that race. We try hard. We go way out of our way because we don't like being accused of being race baiters or playing the victim or all these things that we shouldn't even have to bother with. But we really, really go out of our way and go through some mental gymnastics to not land at, man, this is just happening for this very obvious reason.
Yeah.
And that this young lady has this experiment that's now turned into a documentary. I hope she has a successful Kickstarter and that we get to see this experiment play out in real time because it's just additional evidence that it's not our imagination, that we're not making these things up, that this is a real world and these are real outcomes for us that are based on nothing more than us being more melanated than other candidates. And that DEI and affirmative action were never about giving opportunities to unqualified people. There's just so many qualified people that never get an opportunity, that are passed over for reasons that have nothing to do with this meritocracy that you guys argue about. Sometimes it's just racism. Flatly.
It's like the only thing that makes sense across the board. The only thing. It's the only thing that explains it all. And some people still need to accept that.